Hello, my friends, and whoever else happens to stumble here. My name's Kayla, and this is my March wrap up. Maybe I should start out by saying hello to specific names. I should pick a name that's like the friend of the video. And if you arrived here and you're not already subscribed, if I say your name, you then have to subscribe. Oh my God, I love this idea. Jessica, Bethany, Eleanor, Gabriella, and Henry. If that's your name, tell me down below and you must subscribe because we're officially friends. My wrap-ups this year are a little different. They're super fun because I just talked to you about the books that I have yet to talk to you about. All of these ones I showed you in vlogs, I discussed in vlogs, I reviewed in vlogs. I will remind you of my ratings for all of them in a moment. But first, I actually have 6 things that you don't know anything about unless you are one of my channel besties. Then you might have participated in the book club live show for this. So we'll start here. This is the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies series, where Emily is a scholar and she's in her 30s and she's studying fairies, and she meets this boy who is in a similar position. His name is Wendell, and he's not a boy, he's a man. They are fully grown adults entering into a fairy world to learn more about them. It's a soft, light fantasy, but there is lots of action and kind of high stakes, but it doesn't feel like it all the time because in the series, the trilogy, you are reading Emily's journal entries and you're reflecting on her time entering the fairy world, and in this case, taking down an evil fairy queen. I gave the first book in the series a 5. I gave the second book a 3.75, and I'm giving this one, maybe it was a 3.5, whatever it was. This one was a solid 4. Was it a solid 4? I was struggling between 3.5 to 4, and in the live show, I was talking about it and all of my favorite scenes, and I was like, no, wait, I respect a lot of what this book is and what it did. I think my favorite thing about the series is what it didn't do, to be honest. It didn't make Emily, once she falls in love and enters this new life journey, it doesn't make her abandon her life journey. It doesn't make her abandon her education. It doesn't make her into a completely different person. Heather Fawcett is dedicated to Emily as a person. And Wendell also didn't change very much. I think he's more open to certain ideas throughout the series, but he very much trusts Emily, loves Emily, is obsessed with Emily, and everything she does is right and correct because it is, and even if it's wrong, it's for a greater good because everything is in the name of research. And so he implicitly trusts her judgment, and I love their dynamic. I also love that this book didn't introduce a huge conflict between their relationship. It didn't make them have to break up and get back together. Throughout the trilogy, it's just a slow journey of them finally being together and happy forever. This series was very much for me. I'm glad it's over. It finished where it did. If there is always the possibility the series continues. I hope that there isn't because I want it to end here, but this whole universe and certain characters that get introduced, I can imagine spin-off series featuring them, and I think that would be a cool thing to happen. Something interesting if we look at my stats is genre-wise, I only read 3 genres this month when normally there's like 5 to 7 things here. In that bottom area, you'll see I only read like fantasy and fiction. Most things I read were just general fiction and then 1 nonfiction. And specifically with the fantasy that I was reading, it is fairy tales. This fits into that. These also fit into that. So we'll move on to these next. This is The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mohtar. I loved her writing in This Is How You Lose the Time War with Max Gladstone. And this, I believe, is her debut book on her own. This is really everything it promises and everything you expect it to be. It has these 2 sisters. It's about their relationship. It's about their commitment. It has this beautiful prose. It's stunning. It's descriptive. It has a magic system it introduces called grammar. It's a little vague, but that's what you'd expect with a novella. It has these sections, if you listen to the audiobook, that people are singing, and there's like this music that these girls have to sing to these trees for this reason. It also has them kind of being pulled apart and having to grapple with what they want out of life. It has a queer love story. It's about music, it's about love, it's about sisterhood. Like, it has all of the elements. I ended up giving it a 4. I wanted it to be a 5, and I think it could have been if I got like 50 more pages, which I know the book like doesn't want to be. It wants to be just like a little fairy tale, but I definitely wanted more of the magic system. But I like everything that was introduced. It's hard to talk about though because it's so easy to spoil because it is so short. Just know I do recommend this if this is something on your radar. If you also have had, you know, the initial experience with this author and you thought, is this one gonna be good? I think it's good, and I will read more from her for sure. Then we have Thornhenge by T. Kingfisher, which I can't say it was quite as good, but it also has an element that I don't always love. I'm trying to figure out my relationship with like shape-shifting because it's not always my favorite, but I feel like there must be some books out there that I did love it and I'm just forgetting about them. But in here we have this a toad. It's like a toad, but like a human, and there's like she's known as Toadling, and she'll like go back into her toad form. Apparently it's a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, which I know like nothing about. I just didn't grow up being a really like fairy tale or Disney princess kind of girl, so if I did witness it, I mean there were a couple exceptions, but if I did see it, I didn't recognize it until I read some reviews after and they were talking about like what it is. It's about changelings, and basically we have this toad who has been taken in and has to now care for, protect this like human baby, but they also belong in the fairy realm, and you know, maybe the baby is evil. And yeah, actually there are some elements, there's an element to Emily Wilde, not this specific book, more so the first book, that there was a bunch of like little fairy tales sprinkled throughout it, and this felt like one of the tales that could have been in that. So if you love, you know, short little fairy tales, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this. I love T. Kingfisher some of the time. I don't some of the time. I never know what I'm gonna get, but I was excited to read it and I ended up giving it a 3. I think it's fine, but ultimately just wasn't the type of story for me. But nothing really wrong with it. It just mostly ended really abruptly for my preferences. Okay, and then I was like, enough with the fairies, enough with the soft fairy tale vibes. I'm gonna read something about demons and the devil and hell. So I read a couple novellas in that area. One of them is Craft Stories I Wrote for the Devil by Ananda Lima, which I was really excited to get to. And unfortunately, this one also didn't live up to my expectations. Unfortunately, I gave it a 3, which is like a fine rating, right? It was a good book, but not my favorite thing ever. And then I also gave 3 stars to A Short Stay in Hell, which was an audiobook I picked up because I've seen a lot of people talking about it lately, people who I have a lot in common with and who've given that a 5. And I was like, surely this is gonna be my new favorite little novella. And it was a 3. So in this one, it's like a collection of stories, but it's experimental for sure. We have, what would you call this? Autofiction is like when an author is writing their life but making a narrative around it and making it into fiction, but there is a lot of like real stuff in it. So this is like pseudo autofiction in that that's what it is, but it's the character doing it. The character is writing herself into the book, inside the book, or into her own stories. So it opens up saying like, there was a woman who met the devil at a Halloween party, blah, 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 blah. And then the next chapter is like, I went to a Halloween party and met the devil. And that's a fun way to start it. And then she's like writing stories for the devil, but it's not what I thought, because it's not like the devil is really this recurring figure in the story. And like overall, it's not like he's like, write me a story, or she's like, if I write him a story and I constantly think about him, he'll come back to me or something. And that's maybe what my expectations were going into it, but it's just her writing stories, and they revolve around her life, and they talk about a lot of things you know, prevalent right now, like COVID and I don't know, immigration, just the political climate, and navigating a lot of things in these little stories. So in that, it feels like a short story collection, but it also like overall is a novel. It's strange. And I don't know if I put this in the fantasy category or the realistic fiction category, because it feels kind of like both. It's just a little bit surreal. One of the stories is like critiques of, it's like reading book reviews of the stories, and that was really interesting. Definitely a very original idea, a little bit disjointed. I wish maybe it was more stories, like, and there was no connection, or it was more of a connection and it was longer, and like relationship with the devil really came back, was like a whole part of it. Anyway, A Short Stay in Hell is about this man who ends up in hell, and basically it is a library of books. You could walk this library for thousands and thousands of years and never end. Like, there's no end to the library. It's infinite. And there are other people also there, and they're all spending time in hell trying to find a book on the shelf that is their life story. And basically when you arrive in hell, I don't know how much is in the synopsis because I never read it, so I don't want to give too much away. But it's kind of hard not to, because I also don't think the book really has like a point to it or an ending. So it just is the entire time what I'm about to say. So if that is considered a spoiler, like, oh, skip over it if you want to know nothing. And you have every single memory of your life when you arrive in hell. You get every single memory. You can relive and recount every single second of your life. So when you find that book that perfectly matches your life, you will know it because you remember every single element. But there could literally be a book that you open and every single word and every single moment is the exact same, but one thing is slightly different, and then that's not your book, and you have to keep looking, and nobody knows like the point of it. And the demon is basically like, don't try to figure out the meaning, don't try to figure out like what the purpose of this is, just do it until you find your book. But like, at first he goes and opened the first book, literally isn't even words. Like, it's just letters in a completely chaotic order. And it takes him many, many years before he even finds the first book that has one single of the 300 pages, like one single actual word. So that's how long it's going to take him to find not only like one whole scene, but his whole entire life, and his whole entire life to be correct. There's like millions and millions and millions of books. Like, this is such a fascinating concept. I got hooked from the very beginning. And then as the book went on, I was running out of pages. And I was like, oh my God, this is not going to end in a way that I like. And it didn't. I don't think it was satisfying, but I don't think it was like ambiguous enough, if that's the direction we were going. The concept is so fascinating. It could be an entire series. It could be like a 900-page book, and I would read it. So I had to give it a 3 because conceptually, so interesting. And I think a lot of people will dig it, but it just didn't like stick the landing the way that I wanted. And then the one nonfiction I read is One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad. And this is, I'm going to call it like 60% commentary or a think piece and 40% memoir. The people that I've seen not like this have said that they don't understand why it was a memoir, or why he is relating all of this other, government war commentary on Palestine, especially why he's talking about his own life, how it's related, like why he's the one talking about this. He is a man from Egypt. He moved at a young age to Qatar and then to Canada, and he became a journalist. And I didn't know any of that. I just knew like the overall like pitch of this book, how it became a book, and it was absolutely perfect. I wouldn't change a single thing about this, but the fact that he is a journalist, and I didn't know that going in, just gave it such an interesting angle that I didn't even consider the book would have. For one, it's talking about his life. It's talking about the places that he's lived and the things that he's seen, and his experience grappling with the West's impact and the power on the rest of the world, and how it's shaped his existence. And for that, it is a memoir. It's definitely a memoir. And it talks about that in the pitch, like that this is about his life, but it's also very much like a response to everything happening in Gaza right now and throughout history. But it's not a history of Palestine. And like, I don't know how somebody might think that's what it is with how short this is. And it's also not an entire history of like political relationships. It's small pieces of it. And throughout the book, it becomes less about him, less anecdotes from him, and more of his commentary on various relationships with America and Israel, America and Palestine, people's relationship with their government. But because he's a journalist, there's also such a significant portion of this about journalistic integrity and honesty and the sanitation of language and how you can be manipulated by media and like the inner workings of news stations and how things function. This was 5 stars if I didn't say that already. I think this is something that most people should read and will definitely gain something from. I highlighted so much stuff in here. Like it's so good. It's so well written. The one like anecdote I'll give you that gives a really good summary of like the vibe of this is he one time participated in going to like people, you know, the Google Maps, the car that goes around. There was one time he happened to go with them to Iqaluit, which is very, very northern Canada in the territories. And they were taking the pictures as they were going along. And there was a moment where one of the locals was saying like, this road that you're taking photos of, it's completely covered in water in a different part of the year. And then the chapter continued to talk about other things. And then it came back to this conversation about Palestine and how you watching the news or getting information from a certain source is only one specific view. And there's always going to be a bias. And if you're only looking at something from one perspective and not hearing from someone genuinely a local, you're only going to get one side of a story. You're only going to ever see one view, and why it's so important that people listen to the journalists who are from Palestine. And then he went into talking about how many have died and how this is such a horrific thing, a unique number, like the amount of people who this is the reason why there's such a lack of information and why it's so important to follow the people and pay attention to the people who are talking about things, who have the actual information, because our media is so sanitized. Our media is so, and you won't know that it's only from one perspective unless you're hearing from a genuine voice. And it's so easy to be misled. And this is a great example of something that I think is targeted at a certain group of people, somebody who has a certain political affiliation, that this already, when they pick it up, is something that they already know that they believe in. They just want somebody more intelligent than them, or somebody more worldly than them, or somebody, you know, with more experience than them, wants to hear their opinion, their thought process, and wants to solidify their belief system. But there is also some uncomfortable moments in here for those people. I think like when we think of fiction books, we think sometimes about like how it's marketed and how this book has to appeal to a certain audience, and that's the whole purpose of it. And we don't think about that with nonfiction sometimes, but it's very smart how this was written and who he's talking to. But then also, if somebody with a different political affiliation picks it up, this could be the first time that somebody is introduced the idea that the media is not telling you everything, and that people who are in power do not have your best interest at heart and giving you another viewpoint. If you already love a memoir, this is going to be for you. If you hate a memoir and you don't understand why like certain moments are being inserted in here when he's talking about like global issues, then like this isn't the one for you. But I thought it was absolutely perfect. Everything that I expected it to be. I put this in my 5-star predictions of the year, and I was correct. I was also correct about this being a 5-star prediction. I gave Wild Dark Story by Charlotte McConaughey 5 stars. I gave Sloppy Firsts by Megan McAfferty. I gave this one 4 stars, which was definitely a surprise. I gave The Thing in the Snow by Sean Adams 4 stars. I gave Invisible Monsters by Chuck Palahniuk 4 stars. I gave 1-Star Romance by Laura Hankin 3.5 stars. I gave The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini 3 stars. I gave Mr. Penumber's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan 3 stars. I gave When the World Tips Over by Jandy Nelson 3 stars. And I gave The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer 1 star. Now, if we pull up my stats again, you'll see those numbers reflected in this little bar chart. No 2s, but so many 3s, which is why my average rating of the month is, drumroll please, 3.5. I'm really trying to get to like a 3.7 by the end of the year, but this month and last month have been a 3.5, which I think is fine because like there are some 5 stars here. There was only one 1 star, but there were just so many 3s. a good amount of 4s. I have nothing really to complain about. I read 15 books this month, 4,201 pages. Very important to count that one. I read 7 physical books, 5 books that were like a mix of the physical and the audiobook experience, 3 solely on audio. I can't even remember which ones those would be. Well, The Short Stay in Hell. And then in the other one, it was like half and half, authors that I've read from before versus new to me. In the top one, half the books that I read, I bought this month to read them this month. And then a quarter came from the library, a quarter came from my physical TBR shelf, which I'm into. As far as superlatives go, one of them is the best book that you read of the month. And my answer is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. I did cry. I cried on camera. If you know me, you know that if a book makes me cry, it was probably because it was so good and emotionally impactful that like it's obviously a 5. It's about a family who's living on this island, a little bit apocalyptic, but that's not the main focus. It's character driven. These characters are struggling, and a woman washes up on the shore one day and she impacts their lives. Best sequel, the only sequel that I read of the month is Emily Wilde. So by default, that's my answer. Best audiobook. Okay, what I will say about The River Has Roots is I think you'll either hate or love the audiobook because they're singing and there's music. And I don't always love that because sometimes I find it a little bit jarring when there's music constantly coming in and out of the audiobook. But if you love it, then that's the thing. The girls are singing and playing music and it's like in the audiobook. But my actual opinion and answer is Emily Wilde because Wendell Bambleby is my favorite. There's a question favorite character. It's Wendell. And they did get a male narrator for his sections. All 3 of the books, he literally comes in for like 1 chapter and it really makes the book. So that was my favorite audio experience. Biggest surprise? Okay. Biggest surprise is how much I hated The Wishing Game. I thought it would just be like a meh read for me because so many people love it, so many people hate it. Maybe I'd be in the middle. I hated this so much. And then the other surprise was not like a 5-star because my 5 stars were expected. So my most unexpected 4-star was Sloppy First because this is YA and it's just like a messy high school tale, but I loved it. Also, I kind of think The Thing in the Snow was a surprise because this is truly about nothing. Like there is a plot, but like nothing actually ever happens. It's one of those books that's just like somebody's wondering about something for 200 pages and like never gets an answer. And that, yes, that is my kind of thing, but I think it's just surprising that it works. Like it works. This works for me. Author I want to read more from. Okay, so there's, like I said, half of these authors are ones that I've read from before. So like, yeah, I want to read more Charlotte McConaughey, but that's because I've already read quite a few. An author that I read for the first time that I would want to read more from, you know what? I'm going to say Robert Sloan. My 3-star of Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore did not steer me away from this author. I do still want to read Sourdough. And I also have another one on my TBR. I like just bought it the other day before I finished this one. I can't remember what it's called and I don't know where it is, but it has like a moon something. It has a goofy cover and I'm intrigued to read more. A book I'm going to recommend the most. This will be a surprise to no one. I think this would be a great read for almost anybody. Most beautiful book. You know what? I don't actually think I'm like obsessed with any of the covers of the month, to be perfectly honest. But I do love the flowers on this one. I like Wild Dark Shore enough, but it's not like an oh my god cover. I like this one, but it's more so the inside. This is the most beautiful inside that I read this month. There's illustrations regularly, but they don't take over the entire story. You might remember last month I read something similar, but the illustrations were like the point and there wasn't much story. That one has an equal amount of each. Oh, that's it. Those are all the questions that I myself wrote down. If there's any other superlatives you think I should add to the end of the month stats, please let me know. Also, if you got to the end of the video, tell me your name in the comments. Introduce yourself. Tell me your all-time favorite book and your name. And then the most common name, I'll make sure to say hello at the beginning of next month's video and call us official friends because there's enough of you that makes sense. It's just one of the stupidest things I've ever done. Okay, love you so much as a friend, and I'll see you in a video in like a week. Bye!